It's time for The Scribble, your weekly fix of celebrity chats, bizarre stories in the news, and basic random chatter with best-selling author and syndicated radio host Jeremy Bradley. Make sure your seat is in the upright and locked position and your barf bag is securely in place. Here's Jeremy Bradley.
Thank you very much, Larson. Jeremy Bradley here. This is The Scribble, 30 minutes of time-wasting fun. And let me start out by saying, I was wrong. There you go. You don't know. I feel like that coming out of my mouth is just, Here's the thing. On the show the other week, I talked about the news industry, media, right? How, the TV news anchors are making these stupid videos of them, dancing around before the newscast, and they're taking selfies before they do this live hit from the flood zone where people have lost their houses. And it's known as All About Me TV in the industry now, with these young whippersnappers that just, they grew up on the social media platforms, and secretly they want to be a quote-unquote influencer. And I'll always say the word that way because I've never liked it, and I've always thought of it as a joke. So one of the things that I said on that show was that something to the effect of, name me another industry, or name me, where people are doing things like that. And I said, are people doing that at, fast food, or are they doing it in, retail jobs or whatever? Well, here's the thing. You overwhelmingly told me that they are. That's how out of touch I am with social media, all right? So I really just thought it was people in the media, these young people who just come out of college, these young journalism students or videographers or whatever communications, program they took in school. And I really thought it was a very egocentric sort of trait of a journalist in today's world. Boy, was I wrong. Boy, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy, was I wrong. Let me tell you. So I will tell you, actually, coming up on The Scribble right after this.
Isn't it crazy that you wait for payday, but before you know it, you're strapped for cash again? It's time to stop blowing your money and become a smart spender with the book, The Official Guide to Being an American Cheapskate, at cheapskatebook.com. Learn simple ways to cut costs at home every day and during special times of the year. Don't go broke at Christmas. Don't remortgage the house for a fancy vacation. The book is filled with tips to save you money throughout the year. Check out the best-selling book, The Official Guide to Being an American Cheapskate, at cheapskatebook.com or on Amazon and iTunes.
Ever had something to get off your chest but never had the balls to say it? That's a load of crap. Speak Free with JB.com is exactly what you've been waiting for. Your chance to tell it like it is and not care what anybody else thinks. Have your say on issues of the day. Join newspaper and radio columnist Jeremy Bradley as he tells it like it is. Hundreds of thousands of people have stopped by, including some well-known celebrities who have had a chat with JB and speak candidly about what's really going on in the world. You can join them too. Have a rant or a rave. Be brave and head on over to www.speakfreewithjb.com now.
JB here on The Scribble. So years ago, I wrote a book called Put Down Your Damn Phone Already, and it was published, actually, social media was around, but it wasn't as intrusive. I mean, I guess both words apply to social media. But it was mostly about people just, clutching their phone all day, every day. And I understand if you're, on a plane or you're commuting for a long time, I'll watch a video or something on my phone, right? I mean, that's, what else is there to do? But I've heard now that, I don't know if it was Netflix, Pete Davidson was talking about this a while back, where he said that movie producers or writers or whatever are basically wanting to produce programming that you can consume, or listen to, really, because they know that you're going to be either having it on your TV screen at home and clutching your phone at the same time. So you're going to be scrolling on your device as you're listening to the actual program, right? So you're not going to be watching. And I actually remember thinking about that years ago when I still lived with my parents. My dad would play this video poker handheld kind of a game. Not on a phone, because that wasn't a thing back then. But, just one of those like little video game things. And then my mom would be doing a crossword puzzle or word search or some kind of like a puzzle book. So he would be on one chair in the living room, she would be on the other, and then I'd be on the couch, and we would be, whatever the show was, watching TV that evening. And I always remember thinking, that's so weird. Like, they're not even looking at the screen. We're watching TV. Why aren't you looking? And they're going to look up every now and then. They're going to glance up. So that concept, I was kind of like, well, yeah, I guess my parents did that, a while ago. But it wasn't a phone that they were holding and looking at something else. So this thing about people live streaming from their job. So when I talked about that on the show, I got a bunch of links from people, from listeners, of people who do it. And then I guess there's a whole collection of people, and it's mostly a TikTok thing. I didn't realize that TikTok had a live stream. I thought that was an Instagram thing, but I guess whatever. Whatever. I've never been on TikTok. I truly have never been on TikTok ever. I've never even downloaded the app. I don't even have the app on my phone. So first of all, the idea that people would be setting up their camera, and I saw people like Walmart employees and office employees, and then the videos of them getting fired, which is it's just really funny. But anyway, so I'm sitting here going, this kind of ties in with that show that we did a few weeks ago about looking for job ads or, sticking it out in places that you don't really like. And I've always had an issue with people who come in on day one to a new place and have their phone on their desk right away. I've always felt that way. Now, our team, as I've mentioned many times before, our team has been together for about 20 years. So, and we're also in the media business as well. So it's a little bit different than, let's say, an office, because we're constantly getting news alerts from the celebrity world, from Hollywood stuff. So, the phone does come into play with what we do. I don't understand, though, how somebody at Walmart thinks that they can just have their phone in their pocket and then just, go down an aisle and just start making videos. And, and it's funny because the videos that I saw were people who were like trash talking the company itself, and then also talking about, the stupid customers that I just had and whatever. And sometimes they're even in the stores, they're doing it. And there was one guy who, he was young. I don't know how old he was, but certainly not even in his mid-20s. And this was his confession video, I guess, after he was fired. And so he's going on and saying, I want to be a TikToker and YouTuber and just got fired from Walmart. I was barely there for 3 months and, it kind of sucks and whatever. First of all, I think, when did we tape that show? Like a year or so ago. I don't even remember. It was called something like "Don't Aspire to Be an Influencer," don't want to be an influencer, or don't become an influencer, because again, it's a stupid thing. Like, it's not a job. It's not, and for people who think that your life will be on easy street after that, that's just not the reality. And I gave the example that I hosted our syndicated radio show for 15 years, 15 years, and we had huge audiences and great success. Hollywood red carpets and things. But like any even TV show, it runs its course. It runs out. It sputters out, or what? Not sputters out. Putters out? Whatever. Can't think of the word. Good thing we pulled the plug on that show. But that peters out. Thank you, Bonnie. But that's exactly it, though, right? And I said on that show, or maybe it was another show, think about how many people stay at the exact same job. You might stay in the same field, right? A nurse will stay in nursing. Okay, fine. But you're not staying at the same job for 10, 15, 20 years anymore. And so you have to look at that kind of a lifestyle. There was also somebody who, she posted a video saying that she just got her dream apartment, or just got an apartment, and it was her dream job. And she had 300 followers on whichever platform. And then she quit the job to do full-time content creation kind of thing. And again, I don't know where she got the idea that money is going to come in, come rolling in hand over fist. And even then, it's not like a paycheck where you're paid every second Friday, or every Friday, or whatever it is, right? I mean, there's delays on things. So if it's the Facebook creation program, because our companies are on that, Facebook pays us to post content. But we also have large audiences, and it's part of a business program, so it's a little bit different. But so let's say it's January, your month is January 1st to 31st. That's fine. You're not paid until February 25th even sometimes. So you're not paid for almost an entire month. So unless you've really saved up, and if that person who just got her dream apartment, I mean, hopefully she had a lot of money saved up to be able to quit and just do that. That's also just a stupidity thing. But going back to this whole, live streaming while you're working your shift at Walmart, or, sitting in an office and just propping up your camera, I had no idea that people were making videos. I've seen the ones of the get ready with me, and I've questioned, like, what? Okay, I thought the point of it was just to kind of show your body off. That's what I thought it was. Because it always starts out with the hot muscle guy in his underwear, and I guess women will be, I don't watch the girl content like that. but I've seen them do it. And so that's where I'm just kind of like, I don't really understand the point of this. So I figured it was just to show off bodies. But then I guess I later heard that it was, sometimes you would have the brand names flash up, right? It's these shoes or this shirt or whatever it is. And it started when people would do that whole, they would either drop the clothing or they would they would jump, right? Wasn't that it? That you would jump and your outfit would change? That was kind of a trend for a while. That's maybe a few years ago now already. But again, I just remember watching those and going, I don't know the point of this. Like, what is the, it was just weird. I would laugh because being in media production, the camera angle jumps. So I guess, it's not the exact same spot, because I think the first time when you're in the first outfit, you have your, the camera is just there, and then you've hit stop, and then you make another video, but you've moved it just slightly, so the camera, that's what caught my eye. But whatever, I'm a different kind of a person like that. So the getting ready with me videos is one thing, which again, and I've always felt that people just spend too much time, especially when they're doing these rants and there's the jump cuts every few seconds. And to me, that just says you couldn't articulate your thought in one take. I've just now been talking for 9 minutes straight. We haven't had to do any do-overs. We haven't taken out anything, because I've been in broadcasting for 20 years and I know how to speak properly and I know how to get my point across. And so, media training, I definitely would help people if that's something that they want to get into as being a quote unquote influencer. But a day in the life video, I mean, we had very interesting days hosting the radio or producing the radio shows, because, we would be preparing for a show with, a celebrity guest or red carpet show or travel programming, or there would be even just a celebrity death and we're jumping on breaking news for a bunch of stations. So that, I think, would have been interesting content for people. But the reality is that that's not every single day around our office. So if you commit to, I think that's what my sense, and I could be wrong, as I admitted at the top of the show I was, but I think almost what people are doing is making it seem like they have an actual show. Like, I'm gonna go live every day at 1:00. It's almost like you have your own programmed show on a station, like it's a TV show or radio show or streaming show or something like that. And so, the big question is, how focused are you on your job that's paying you, and the phone streaming is not. And so people seem shocked when they get in trouble. There was no warning. There was no write-up. I didn't even get I didn't get a verbal. I didn't know what that meant. I didn't get a verbal as a disciplinary action. And so I thought, you would need that, though, to tell you it was kind of not the cool thing to do at work. And so I've heard about how employers will do a background check on your social media. I always felt that it was to see if you were, some big druggie or doing illegal things, whatever. But I guess that would be something that I would take note of. As I've said before, we haven't been in the hiring position at our company for so long just because it's the same team. We haven't had turnover and we don't need more people. We're fine with what we have. So I haven't had to hire people in many, many years. But I guess now that is something to think about. I would look and see, are you neurotic with your posting every single goddamn day on social media? And if you are, if you're doing it from a job, I guess I would sort of look at that as the employer. I probably would. I don't think that, well, none of our group here is big into social media anyway. We're all old. We're all in our 40s. So, well, or 40s and up, really. I mean, Bonnie's in her 70s, right? So we're not that generation that's thinking that you want to see, you want to watch me eat. And I've talked about before how I've got a cousin who she'll just prop up the phone in her kitchen and just, she's making a sandwich or something, and then she'll come and look at the phone on the screen to see who's commented or what's going on, and then go back to making the sandwich. And I remember saying to one of my other cousins who pointed this out to me, and I said, is that what people find entertaining nowadays? Like, is that what is considered I was going to say page turning content, but that's what you would call it back in the day, right? It was a real page turner in terms of a book or something that would make you keep reading. But people don't read now. But is that an attention grabber? Because I don't see the entertaining part of it. I'm me as the viewer. I'm going to sit there and just watch this person make a sandwich. And then, she's going to come over and I just don't get it. It's really weird. What's mind-boggling, though, is the people who they get fired and then they come home. Sorry, they get fired because of TikTok, and then they come home and immediately run to TikTok to give an update about getting fired. And, that's one of these things where I've talked about people oversharing things online. And I've talked about how, I was in my relationship for several years. I wasn't even on Instagram really when we were hosting when we were producing. Two thoughts: we were producing radio shows and I was hosting radio shows, but you get what I mean. I wasn't even on Instagram until probably 5 or 6 years ago, maybe. And even then, I have not even posted thousands of times. We would have content from our travel programming, maybe a red carpet thing. I was never big into selfies on red carpets. I'm from the generation where we just didn't do that starting out, but that's the trend now, right? It's all about it because I'm the host. Now it's my moment. It's not about covering the red carpet and having the celebrity have their moment and their nomination and their whatever. It's me fanning out and live streaming the entire morning of getting ready. And I remember saying that to you guys a few weeks ago on the show that we never did that. I was always focused on the work. I wasn't sitting here going, we're going to give everybody behind the scenes. Like, we would take pictures and things just to kind of document for our own purposes. But that's where I thought there was this, professionalism. We don't show you how it's made. We just make it and then show it to you or broadcast it to you. Because there was a little bit, you want to keep the mystery. Why would I want to tell everybody, the behind the scenes of what goes into a show? You would maybe do that once in a while, but I wasn't, going and standing in the hotel mirror going, here's my outfit for the red carpet. Here's a picture of me in the car going to the red carpet. Here's me getting set up on the red carpet. Here's me doing a selfie on the red carpet. That just wasn't my focus. We were producing, quality content. So, but again, that's also the industry that we're in. So it would make sense for us to do live streams for things like that. But I mean, again, if you're just sitting in an office or you're in a Walmart or you're in a coffee shop or whatever it is, I mean, I would have an issue with that as the employer. As it is when we have meetings, there's a no phone rule. You're not allowed phones in our meetings when we have our group sessions. It's just not allowed. It's too much of a distraction. You're here to work and do the job. TikTok is not part of anybody's job here. Again, you could go and say, well, you're a media company, you produce broadcasts or whatever. Yeah, but we just don't do TikTok. We do. It's not our thing. It's not our crowd. So the people who get fired and then, cry to TikTok and are shocked about it, it's interesting to see, I watch the videos on YouTube because what I've seen is the people who do the compilations of those people. So it's the people who compile, 5 or 10 different TikTokers, play the clips, and then they comment about it, and then they'll read the comments section of the videos and show that the people are not they're wanting the sympathy, and the people going, oh my God, I'm so sorry to hear that. But the majority of people are kind of going, yeah, it was kind of stupid for you to do that. Like, why would you do that? I would be one of those people. Maybe I should get on TikTok just to be part of that, be part of the mob the mob that just makes fun of them and says, God, you were stupid. Why would you even think to do that? I don't know. So again, as I said at the top of the show, I was wrong. I take it back. It's not just reporters or media personalities who are doing these stupid, watch me put on my lipstick. Here's it's these day in the life of like an office worker, and it's from the time that they wake up in the morning, and just sitting at their desk. And again, if you're so focused on talking and narrating and entertaining this audience, at the same time, how lame is your audience to find this interesting? I don't know. Is it other people at work who are watching it? Like that's interesting too. So you're live streaming from your job. The people who are watching, are they at work? Are they unemployed? Are they at school? Like who is your audience then at this point? Is nobody working anymore? And this is the thing that always I find really interesting, because, we talk about how, now remember, I see this from the employer perspective, and then I also see it from the employee perspective. I hear employees complaining about how, the employers want everything under the sun, right? It's not just, and I've agreed with that. I said I see that in job postings where you could be listed as, let's say a YouTuber. We did talk about that actually about a month or so ago, maybe a little bit longer. But then the job description has all these like administrative things and answering phones and, inquiries from the general public or whatever. And it's like, but you have me as the video person. So the job title says one thing, but then there's this laundry list of tasks and responsibilities underneath. So I get it that, some employers are wanting a lot out of everybody. But the mindset of today's employee, at least in the younger generation, is, my phone comes with me. My phone and me are one. And I think that you would find probably a lot of employees would quit if you went and said to them, no phone for the entire shift. You can't have your phone out. You got to focus on what you're doing. I sense that a lot of people would quit that job. They would not stick around there very long. Or what will happen is you will find them having a lot of bathroom breaks, or getting up out of their desk and going somewhere where they can look at their phone. That's what's going to happen. Years ago when I worked at Party City, so again, we're going back over 20 years now at this point, so not many people, we had a younger staff. I had a cell phone. I was in my early 20s, but not many other people did. Actually, I got my phone while I was working there after work one day. Literally, one day after work, I went to the store. But we had a rule that there were no phones. There were only a few people that did have phones, but you kept them in the back room. And that was something where it was kind of like, and people did not have an addiction to their phone at that time. So if they waited until their break, then that was okay for them. But think about that, right? I mean, if you get an office job, you're sitting at your desk and they tell you no phone on your desk, maybe you can have it in your pocket, but if we see it out, you get in trouble. You would take offense to that. You would go and say that's a bullshit rule. You're going to complain. And then it's like, well, then go. And, again, as the employer now, I would go and say, yeah, because at the same time, I want your attention here. I'm kind of the same way. Like back in the day when I worked in an office, it always annoyed the piss out of me when I would be there right on time. We started at 8 o'clock or whatever time we started. But you'd have people that would roll in at 8:05, and then they stand around and talk for 10 minutes. And I remember thinking, no, you start at 8 o'clock. You're being paid from 8 o'clock. So you already, you're milking the clock because you're now 15 minutes in. So you've just been paid for a quarter of an hour and you haven't done a fucking thing. But here I am, who was early. I was on time. I started my work right at 8 o'clock. And that's, so it's kind of like this, the respect for the employers, the person who's paying you, it's the respect for their time and their money. And, so if you're so focused on watching the clock and going, okay, it's 1 o'clock, I've got a live stream now, or you're doing it all fucking day, oh my God, then get a job that challenges you. Get a job that, uses your focus. And for the life of me, I can't believe that that one chick who's got 300 followers and a new apartment to pay for, and I'm sure, by the way, her rent is more than my mortgage on a house that I own. But I'm shocked that that's the new dream job. And I've heard that in a study where it's not doctor, lawyer. I think journalist even used to be on the list. It's not firefighter. It's not cop. It's not, whatever. It's content creator and influencer. And let me just repeat what I'd said on the show a few months ago. Or excuse me, last year, right? Thank you. Unless you have a solid content strategy. I talked about how I've seen these podcast or these YouTube channels where the people just rip on Meghan Markle, or they rip on Donald Trump, or they rip on, like, it's very, 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 very specific. I can't remember the one woman's name, but and then she goes on all of the other YouTube channels and podcasts to talk about Meghan Markle and Prince Harry, or the Harry formerly known as Prince, as I call him. And I said, if you're a one-trick pony like that, that's all we're going to know you as. You haven't spread your wings. You haven't diversified. You haven't, expanded your content creation. So, like, what happens then when, I don't know, they die? Let's say that something does happen to them and all of a sudden they're no more. Are you fucked now? Because all we know you as is just the person who rips on Meghan Markle all day, every day. That's all I know you as. So you got to do a really hard pivot, fast, because now you got nothing. And same thing with the one I talked about it when we were talking about media, the political guys. Well, any of those podcasts that are political, that any of them that just rip on, politicians or the current president or whatever it is, you kind of sit there and go, well, that president isn't going to be in the office for all that, eventually, what happens then when that term is up and then there's a new person? Because all we know you as is the person who just rips on whoever it is. I think back to a time when we didn't have phones at our job. We didn't have social media. We had no real way to check in with our circle of people in our lives. You had to wait until you got home. I still remember, actually, my mom, first thing she'd do when she got home from work was go to the answering machine and see if it was blinking, the light was blinking red, because that meant that there was a message. And then you would hear whatever it was, my grandma or some company or, whatever it was. But you had to go the entire day without hearing from anyone in your life. Could you do that now? I realize there's some jobs where, a phone is absolutely off limits and, you can't check it for hours and hours on end. But what happens if... Actually, I have asked this before. I said, if you leave your phone at home, when you're rushing out the door, you're going to work, and you leave your phone at home, maybe you're halfway to work, maybe you're at work, do you go home and get it? Do you run all the way home? And I think almost everybody that I've spoken to has said, yes, I would. And there's the excuse, though, right? It's because, this and that, my kids and blah, blah, blah. Well, let's say that your kids are in school. The school has your work phone number, I would assume. I think that's a requirement, is to have, an emergency contact number, whatever it is. So there's always going to be the justification as to why I would have to go back home and get my phone, or why I would do it. You couldn't do it. You couldn't go the work day. Because think about that. Like, what would you do at lunch? Maybe you'd go home at lunch if you have a long enough lunch. But, you would be so distracted as well. Because what I thought was, okay, well, that means that you wouldn't have the distraction of your phone. You can actually focus on your job. And then somebody said, no. I'd be all day. I'd just be thinking about my phone, that I don't have it. What am I missing? What notifications, what's coming up or what texts haven't I seen? And I just go and say, wow, that's wild. And I'll give you an example. There's some days here when and I've said before, my phone is not in front of me when we do this show. It's not in front of me. I come in with I write my notes on Post-its because I'm a cheapskate. I do. I've got 2 laptops. I've got 3 phones. I've got notepads. I have probably more pens than anybody I know. But I have Post-it notes that I make my notes on. But some days, and even when we were doing radio shows, they were 2-hour radio shows. Now they wouldn't actually be 2 hours, but there were some times, if we had enough pre-taped content, that we would tape the month of shows. So maybe 8 hours of radio. But again, it wouldn't take that long. So I could be sitting in here at this microphone for a good 3-4 hours maybe. And I'm not twitching. I'm not sitting there, my hands aren't shaking because I haven't looked at my phone. And that's fine. But again, I'm from the generation that I didn't go through school having it be a distraction for me when I was sitting in class. I'm before that time. And so for me, it's not an issue. Even when I have worked at other places, like I've talked about how I've been brought in to do contract work to, host a company's podcast or whatever it is. Again, maybe my phone would be out on my desk. Now, at the same time, I'm also in a bit of a situation where I'm an entertainment host and correspondent, and that would come first. So if a celebrity died or something, I do need to be in touch. The office, our team would need to get a hold of me. So, I'm a little bit of a different situation where I'm not an actual employee, and these people are bringing me in because of the connections and what I do. So, I do have an exception when it comes to me needing to be on my phone because of what I do. But it certainly is not going to be me, texting my husband all day or, checking in with my family's social media or anything like that. I'm not, I would never, I don't even do that at home. But, okay, like put down your damn phone already, just like my book title from years ago. It's very, what's refreshing though to me is to see how many people are now going back to this influencer thing. I did see a bunch of, there were 2 people who made compilation videos of people who were resigning or retiring from being an influencer, mostly after like 1 year. And what was their reason? It's exhausting always talking about myself. I ran out of ideas and the money sucks. And that was something, again, if you listen to that show that we did, whatever it was, a year ago, year and a half ago, however long ago, that's exactly what I said. We were fortunate to be in a time when the media landscape was not as saturated. So for us to have a syndicated radio show and we would be doing, so let's say a red carpet show, right? So we had national advertisers. We had a network of anywhere between 20 to, at one time we had about 40 radio stations, but we had at least 20 stations broadcasting our content. So we had an audience of, they were smaller stations. So in total, it was it was a little over 300,000 listeners in some instances. And so back then you could get good money from advertisers. So our red carpet shows, when we would have, it's presented by, or we'd have commercials, or we'd have whatever, we could easily do $75,000 to $120,000 in advertising sales, because the red carpet was so exclusive that you didn't have, you had your Entertainment Tonight, you had your e-news, you had your Extra, you had your People Magazine, you had your CNN, I guess, perhaps, New York Times. But it was very limited. I remember there was one, I think it was America's Got Talent, where we were one of 11 media outlets on the red carpet. And that's when the shows were big, right? Like that's when everybody was watching American Idol, America's Got Talent, The Voice, things like that. And I just remember thinking, this is so fucking cool that, how many millions of people are watching the show at home, and we are one of the few outlets that has the opportunity to cover this. And so we made a shit ton of money, which is how I was able to retire at the age of 39, So, but again, the media, podcasts are a dime a dozen. And, a YouTube page is a fucking dime a dozen. And that's something that I said when I made that, when we did that show about YouTube people and the downfall of them and how one video gets them canceled. And you go, yeah, exactly. Because, think about how maybe you do watch a YouTube channel and you really like the person. And then eventually they don't come up in your feed or whatever it's called on YouTube. Is it called a feed on your whatever? And do you even think about them after a while, right? Because again, it's a YouTube channel is a dime a dozen, a podcast is a dime a dozen. I'm critical of celebrities who all just, they all just do podcasts and they all go on each other's podcasts. And I've said, well, I've already heard you two talking on this podcast. Now that you're going on the other one, I don't need to hear you again. I've already listened to your conversation one time. And so it's interesting when people just disappear, right? Their page just fizzles out or their podcast just ends. And, sometimes there's not even necessarily a goodbye. The person just kind of drops off the face of the earth. That's the reality. So when I hear, kids, my nephews are in their, they're late teens now. One of them, he's already graduated high school, so he's over 18. If I were to hear them, they don't want to be influencers, but I mean, if I were to hear them talking like that, I would just go and say, no, you know what, go to school, get an actual job, be like everybody else. Entrepreneurialism is not for everybody, period. It's not. And it takes a person with great creativity. I wouldn't say that you have to go to school. You don't need a business degree to run a business. I didn't go to business school. I majored in journalism. But at the same time, I had to learn how to promote myself back in the day. And I had to promote myself the hard way. I didn't just create... Social media wasn't a thing when I was getting into the business. So I had to be creative on how to get noticed. And I had to, really slug it out. This was not just a matter of, I'm going to go and do prank videos. I'm going to go and eat something stupid. I'm going to go shove something up my nose and get likes. And I mean, because again, like I said, at the end of the day, you run out. And it's the same thing like with people on OnlyFans. I feel like I'm repeating myself because I've already mentioned these things, but it was a while ago and maybe you don't remember. But I said the same thing about OnlyFans. People who think, I'm just going to take off my clothes and make a shit ton of money. You have to realize, though, that people are, again, treat it like it's a television show. I mean, people are going to get sick of it. Maybe you can start out by teasing them, by, being a little bit revealing and showing a little bit more. But eventually they're going to want to see you fully naked. Eventually they're going to want to see you, masturbating. Eventually they want to see actual sex. And, maybe it'll start with oral stuff first, and then you work your way up to the full. And then what, right? Like for me, if I were to subscribe to somebody's OnlyFans, okay, the reason I'm doing that is, okay, I want to see them naked. Okay, fine. So now I've seen them naked. Well, then I'll just cancel after the subscription, right? Unless I'm really, 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 really into that person. But otherwise, if it's just going to be, every picture is just going to be you standing around naked, well, I don't need to pay for that for 6 months, 7 months, a year. Now, yes, you would get new subscribers all the time, so you're going to have, a rotation of people. But again, the people are going to get what they want, and just think about how many other OnlyFans pages there are out there. So that's fine. The rare celebrity can make $1 million a month, or whatever they claim to pull in. But, and even then, even if you do get a popular page going, and it's a few $100s, maybe it's even a few $1,000s a month, that gets into your head, that just makes you go and say, oh my God, I'm a celebrity. Oh my God, I'm rich. Yeah, but then you start feeling that lifestyle where you go and blow all that money, and then what? For us, with doing the radio shows, to have, $100,000 in ad sales, obviously we had expenses with employee salaries and travel and production costs and what have you, but, we would easily profit anywhere between 60,000 and whatever. That was not me going to the bank and going, I'd like 50,000 in cash, please, and then me throwing it up and rolling around in it in a bathtub. Never. Did I know we were making a lot of money? Absolutely, of course I did. But it was not me going and saying, I'm going to buy a boat, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. No, I was focused on the work. The money was a bonus. That's really what it was. And so, that's where people just mismanage their money. They, quite frankly, they blow their cash that they make. For the ones that are, and the funny thing is that's also where you see these, we got to go, we're out of time. Okay. That's where you see these influencers who maybe they do make a shit ton of money, but they go and buy the fancy car. They go and buy all the expensive clothes, right? Because now they're this baller lifestyle. Now they're, they're celebrities, they're whatever. And then all of a sudden the money dries up real fast because it comes to a crashing end. And I've said that before. When I open up TMZ and I see that, TikTok star, YouTube star, I have never, this is absolutely true, I have never heard of any of them. And, those stories come up at least once a week, whether they're arrested, whether they die, whether they get in trouble, they're arrested, they die, or there's some scandal that they're involved in. I have never once heard of any of the YouTubers or TikTokers because we've just cheapened what celebrity means. And, way to go. Congratulations, everybody. Share your thoughts. Send me an email, live, live@jbonair.com, live@jbonair.com. Did we do that all in one shot? Oh, now we got a whole bunch of commercials coming your way. But feel free to give me a shout. It's always awesome hearing from you. My name is Jeremy Bradley. This is The Scribble. I will talk to you next time. Bye for now.
Who are the Kardashians feuding with now? What did that little thug Justin Bieber do this time? Who's getting hitched? And who's headed for Splitsville? Hear the latest celebrity news and gossip every day on Entertainment Wrap-Up. The good, the bad, the ugly, but mostly the ridiculously hilarious. It's all recapped in this daily segment at entertainmentwrapup.com. Have a laugh at the expense of the rich and famous when they take themselves way too seriously. It's 3 minutes of time-wasting fun at entertainmentwrapup.com. Check out Entertainment Wrap-Up at entertainmentwrapup.com. Brought to you by Speak Free Books.
It's never too early to start thinking about your next holiday. Have you checked out Mexico recently? From tequila tasting, swimming with horses, to ziplining through the jungle and watching whales and dolphins in their natural habitat, Puerto Vallarta has it all. Visit mexico.jbonair.com to see all the fun PV has to offer. That's at mexico.jbonair.com for hundreds of photos, interviews, and videos from around the tourist hotspot. Check out mexico.jbonair.com for all the fun. That's mexico.jbonair.com.
We hear you chirping. Get scribbling. Tweet up the Scribble at The Scribble Show. Join the discussion with Jeremy Bradley. It's all going down right now on Twitter at The Scribble Show and at thescribbleshow.com. Want more Scribble? Check out thescribbleshow.com for past shows, celebrity interviews, cheapskate tips, and more. That's at thescribbleshow.com and on Twitter at The Scribble Show. The Scribble is a Speak Free media presentation.